And so I guess what's so strong for me is listening to this other chapter of Sharon's life that I knew about, right? But when I see the photos, I'm going, dang, you know, I knew Sharon had it going on. You know, just to know that she fought. You know what I mean? And she was I mean, let's be real, she was a white woman living on the Upper West Side. She just, you know, stayed there and lived that life of privilege, although it was a walk-up. You know, she was fighting, and that's something I'm always trying to impress upon my students. So it's just very humbling for me to see this other part of her life. But I digress. So I think what's amazing is when I think about 191 and I think about Hudson, you know, 191, like, we were a family, and Sharon was part of that. And so, you know, someone young like me, Dr. Nasruddin knows, I came in cocky, I thought I knew it all, and you know, 191 was tough. Oh my gosh.
It is.
But the staff was amazing, and Sharon was a part of that. And what I always remember about Sharon was, you know, she fought. You know, she was the one that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Nasruddin, that sort of introduced us to the Lincoln Center of the Arts and fought to bring that into the school. And you know, she saw, here was the Amsterdam housing that was right in the shadow of Lincoln Center, and yet it was this weird microcosm society that sort of lived in isolation, and Sharon was pivotal in just being like, we have to bring these students out of that and expose them to things. And again, she didn't have to do that. All she had to do was come to work, teach, and leave, right? But she went beyond that. And then when I think about when I came back, because man, I wanted to get back to that school so badly when I got access. And when I came back and sort of did the other chapter at Hudson Honors under Ms. Verdesoto, and I remember Sharon at that point was working with, you know, the budget. And anytime I wanted to do something with the kids, anytime, you know, Sharon would help me find the money for it. I would have done it without it. I mean, let's be real, because those kids were my kids. But, you know, Sharon always tweaked the budget. And it was always about, you know, Lisette, if you want to do it for the kids, we'll make it happen. And so, you know, I'm humbled by her memory. I'm humbled, you know, I hope, you know, when I retire or when I pass, hopefully many years from now, that, you know, I can have people that can say this. But like, I just am in awe of everything that she was to that building and just what she did in the other aspect of her life. So, but wait, one last memory. It's going to seem weird. So Sandra can remember this. So, you know, on Halloween, the students sometimes would bring really dumb things on Halloween, and they weren't supposed to. And one of the kids, Freddie Argati, and he brought in, it resembled a huge machete. I mean, it wasn't, but let me tell you, it was scary. When we saw him walking, we were like, okay, what is that he's bringing? And of course, we confiscated, right? Because that wasn't okay. And we were in Ms. Verdesoto, I don't know if you know this, but we were in your office, Sandra, Sharon, and I, and we started making fun with this thing and pretending to chop each other up. And we took pictures of each other. And it's kind of morbid. You know, I have these, and I'm trying to look for those pictures, but I have these pictures of Sharon, Sandra, and I mean, we confiscated this from this kid, but then we were doing this kid. So it's a very fond memory that I have of Sharon. So thank you.
My name's Pat Conway. Those who don't know me, I was kind of late to the table. I was radicalized and I would say awakened by Wall Street. Many of you in this room, and certainly Sharon, have been fighting a much longer time than I have. I want to say to Sharon how grateful I am to have known you, how sweet and just your heart was, how righteous an example you are for every human being living on this planet. We both felt great frustration, and we got to know each other on those long rides back and forth from Boston or from DC, especially the Guantanamo stuff. I was there. She actually she said, I'm not feeling well that day. She had a heart attack, and I said, I think I'm going to catch the early bus back. And I said, are you sure you want me to go with you? She said, no, I'm just going to call it a day. She had a teacher's soul. And what was so wonderful about her example for me and for every activist facing these massive uphill battles, looking at injustice in the world and realizing, well, it's not this and that, it's the 3rd, it's the 18th, it's the 24th thing. Wow, everything's wrong. She never got disheartened. She was just, you know, she was like, okay, we'll get to that next. Let's start with this. Let's get the Guantanamo thing. She had the great ability to compartmentalize the chaos and just say, today it's right to get up and work on this. And I'm grateful to have known her. I'm sorry to have to say goodbye to her today. I know she'd be grateful that I met her over here. Thanks.
Sharon's two worlds since we worked together at 191 and also at World Can't Wait. And speaking about injustice, all of us who worked in both places certainly have come in contact with a lot of injustice, the lives of our students at 191, what they're up against, and all the issues we face in World Can't Wait. I was going to talk about one particular instance of an event that happened with Sharon and me and Eileen, who's sitting over there, and one other person from World Can't Wait, Elaine. We were working on driving out the Bush regime, and we thought that Bush should be impeached, as did many, many people. And we thought if we went to our congressman's office, Congressman Nadler, who's very liberal and progressive on a lot of things, and spoke a lot about how awful Bush was, that since he was the head of the Judiciary Committee, he would get through Congress an impeachment resolution about Bush. But it turns out he wouldn't do it. We got to his office, we tried going with groups of people to his office very politely and asking to speak to him, and we were very impolitely treated and sort of pushed out. They wouldn't even let those of us, for example me, they redistricted for years. I was in Nadler's district and voted for him actually. And they switched the districts around, kept changing every election, whether, for example, I was in Nadler's district or Rangel's district, and the time we went to his office, I was in Rangel. They didn't even give me a chair to sit on. Only if you were in this district could you sit. Anyway, we tried after numerous visits politely to his office, and then his assistant would come out. There was a very sinister office next door which looked like a helicopter service to Guantanamo. It was a federal office building, and he said we would be arrested if we kept coming there. So we decided he had a second office in Coney Island, in an apartment building, which was not a federal property, and we would go there and we would sit in his office. So we went there, and we said, add to it, not if I'm leaving anything out. We went there, we were there all day with a whole group of people. And closing time came, and they said we would have to leave, and we said we're not leaving. You know Sharon, we've all said how stubborn she is, and she was with several other very stubborn people as well. So we refused to leave. They called the police, and they came and arrested us and took us to the local precinct. When we got to the local precinct, the fingerprinting machine was down. So they had to wait for a while to try and get it up and running. Well, they finally got it up and running, enough to do some people, but they couldn't get us. They couldn't get our fingerprints. So they took us to another precinct after putting us on a chain. We were each attached to a long chain. And they took us on this long chain to another police station, where I remember Eileen said, "That ladies were nice," as we walked in, because the cops were kind of surprised to see us. But we got into the station, and again they tried. They had all kinds of cops coming down to try and get our fingerprints. Well, it turns out that as you age, your face wrinkles, but your fingerprints wear off. And they usually got young people, but they were arresting them. And after the fingerprinting machine would work for them, but they wouldn't work with us. After hours of trying, somehow, and they brought us back to the original station again in chains. And then there was a cop who figured a way of overriding the system. So he finally was able to get fingerprints for Sharon and Elaine, and they left. And then they were working on Eileen and me. And they got mine, and then the whole system went down completely. The whole thing, all the way up to Albany, where they have to have our records. And so we had to stay overnight. I mean, Sharon was there till about midnight. Eileen and I were there till about 5 in the morning. That was our experience. But Sharon stood firm. You know, we would not leave his office. Not that that had any effect on him, but we tried.
Did, but I used to hear the other end of it, and I think that she was always trying to get money to come out right and make money where there wasn't any money, and oh, this year they cut us and we don't have it, right?
She was always going to go, and that's our story. One time when I beat her on the same spot, she was to talk about the kids. She always moving.
My memory is after the arrest, because she was arrested without being convicted by for anything, the DOE withheld her paycheck. So she was working for a long time without any income because she was a dangerous felon. But she was very stubborn about it, and I don't think any of you before ever felt like you shouldn't have done it. We felt like it was worthwhile. That was Sharon. Anyone else? I think we have 2 more people. Mary Lou.
I'm Mary Lou Greenberg, and I knew Sharon mainly through World Campaign and seeing her in demonstrations. And I'd like to read today a statement from the Revolutionary Communist Party New York branch. Sharon Pavlovich had a smile you could never forget, and an indomitable commitment to fighting injustice that inspired everyone who knew her. Accepting the way things are just wasn't harder to make up. Whether in an orange jumpsuit in demonstrations against Guantanamo, or engaged in sharp political discussion over humanity's future, Sharon was tenacious in pursuing what she thought was morally and politically right. She had great heart for the people, especially those who catch the worst hell, and she refused to look away or cast her eyes elsewhere. In the 7th decade of her life, braving great physical challenges, she never gave up the fight for a different and far better world, or stopped asking the hardest questions and challenging herself and others. We are pleased and proud to stand with everyone today in celebrating Sharon's life, a life whose value and meaning surely will be reflected in the future world she fought so hard for. The Revolutionary Communist Party, New York.
I knew Sharon from World County. Like Sharon, I am also a teacher. I read a book recently to my kindergarten class, a book about dreamers, teaching them how to write poetry. And the book, some of you may know if you work with younger students, or you might know from your own kids, is Frederick, a Leo. And in the book, it's about a group of mice who are tasked with collecting food for the winter when there is none. And they are collecting rocks so that they can have a place to hide, and they are collecting food so they don't go hungry. And Frederick is not an active participant in this collection. He sits there, and when asked what he's doing, he's collecting the rays of the sun. When asked what he's doing, he's gathering the colors from where there are none. He's not speaking because he's gathering words. And this frustrates the other mice, because they're busy at work. Winter comes and they go and they hide in this stone wall where there is no light and there is no color, where they're cold. They have the food that they collected, the ones who did that meaningful work, and eventually they run out. And when they run out, they have Frederick to look to. They ask him about the sun, and with painstakingly detail, he's able to tell them and make them feel warm again. He's able to describe what the colors of flowers look like, and they can picture it in their minds.